Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Leanne. I'm the face behind Small Gestures Vintage and Crafts, and I am glad that you're here with me this week. So how many of you were Friends watchers back in the day and remember the couch and the stairwell scene? You know, pivot, pivot. That was me this week with this little cutie. Everything that I had planned completely took a different direction. Several different directions, actually. But I love how it turned out. I hope you do too. I've got 5 projects for you this week. Yes, 5. So if you're ready to see my little journey this week and see what I have played around with, then stick around and let's just do it. My first project this week is I'm going to take one of these buckets. I think they're called berry buckets, and I'm leaning towards this one because it's got the metal band at the bottom, and you can see like the top coat that was put on here, it looks like it was just poured on. It's all yellowed, it's flaking, and you see lots of drip marks on the wood. So my first task is to clean that up, get some of that flaking off, and then I also came in with my finger sander just to smooth out some of those big drip marks. I did not want them to be showing underneath my paint. So I got it all cleaned up, gave it a couple of coats of shellac, and now we're coming in with some milk paint. And this is Sweetie Jane. I don't think I've used this color before. As you can see, milk paint is a powder paint, and it is just a 1-to-1 ratio with warm water. And you just stir it for a couple of minutes and then set it aside for about 10 minutes. It's going to thicken up until it reaches like a melted milkshake consistency. I was really surprised that the coverage was as light as it was on this, and I think that's why I don't think I've used it before. I think I would remember that, but I'm giving the whole thing actually about 3 coats is what it took for this little bucket. And you can see there's some areas like right there where it's still resisting right there. So that should be an indication when I try to do transfers. I'm hitting it with my heat gun, and I love the crackle that I am getting on this piece. Absolutely love it. And I decided to paint the bands, the little metal bands there, with some milk paint. And this is a mixture of antique ironstone and a little bit of window pane, which is a pure white. And I was thinking that maybe it would flake and I would see the Sweetie Jane below. That did not happen, probably because I didn't top coat the paint. If I had sprayed it before I put the white on, that might have happened, but it's okay. I really like how it turned out anyway. It's thoroughly dry, so now I'm just coming along with my finger sander and getting away any chippies that are going to happen. So I let this bucket sit for a few hours before I came in with some transfers from St. Germain, and these are probably my favorite floral transfers in there. I just love the look of them and all of the colors. So I started from one end, ended up making some relief cuts, and I also pulled the backing out, you'll see, and I tucked it underneath the transfer. I didn't want to take a chance of it sticking to the surface before I was ready for it to be stuck. So I just started at one end, and it seemed at this point to transfer relatively well. As I worked my way around, I started encountering some challenges with the transfer sticking to the surface, especially with these little flowers right here. It was pulling up the paint underneath. This is where I'm like, okay, I should have let it sit longer. And then I kept going, and then I stopped, and I kept going and I stopped, and ultimately I decided just to leave it as is and let it sit overnight and take it up the next day. So here I am the next day, and I'm actually coming in with a little bit of liquid patina and putting it down on the space where the flower wouldn't stick. And I tried sticking the flower, putting some liquid patina down and seeing if the flower would stick to it, and it would not. So by the time I got to this point, the liquid patina had dried, so I put a little bit more down and just ended up scraping the flower off of the backer and then just trying to ever so gently glue it into place. It's just a little bit of transfer surgery, I guess. Now this was the other floral transfer, and it applied much better. So yes, I should have just let it dry overnight. I only had, I think, one little section on here that really didn't want to stick. Other than that, this one went down so much better. So after I applied all the transfers, I just came in with a sanding pad and went over them. I wanted any loose bits to just go ahead and come off. As heartbreaking as it was, I know it lends itself to the vibe of the piece, but I was just so sad to lose any little flower bits. I love these sprigs in this transfer. And then I decided to seal everything in with some Sweet Pickens dark oil wax. And this wax you apply and then just let it sit for 10 minutes or so, and then just to wipe it back. Now this brush is my dedicated oil wax brush. If you do not have a dedicated brush, then just use like a throwaway or a sponge or something like that, because it will be incredibly hard to try to get all of the oil out of a brush. As a reminder, this is the beginning, and look at all of that crackle and chippy goodness. I love this piece. I just think it is so, so very sweet. For project number 2, I have picked up this piece at an auction. I think I got it for $5, and the rope on here for the handles, I think they just poured the top coat over the whole thing, because those ropes were not going anywhere, and I could not for the life of me figure out how they were attached and how those ropes were not pulling out. So I got to deconstructing it, pulling out bits of that rope piece by piece. It felt like fiber by fiber, to be honest with you, pulling and tugging, and I used my heat gun to loosen everything, and then realized once I got some pulled out, they shot brad nails through the rope to keep it in place, which was really smart. I did not want to repeat that. I was going to do something different in case down the road somebody wanted to have a different look. So I decided to drill holes in the ends that I could feed the handles through, so it would be easy to swap out if somebody wanted to change things up. And I also gave it a really good sanding. And this is the same milk paint that I used in the previous project on the bands. Again, it's a little bit of window pane and antique ironstone. I was shocked really at how much different it went on over versus the Sweetie Jane, because this is a white paint, but I think I just did like 2 coats over this whole thing and then got to work with my heat gun and getting some crackle. So after I liked the coverage and I liked the crackle, then I started sanding it with my finger sander and just, again, encouraging those little bits that were going to chip off. But I ended up with not as much crackle as I wanted. And so you can reactivate milk paint by spritzing it with water and then hitting it with heat again if you want more crackle. And that's what I wanted, so that's what I did. On all of the 4 sides, I just repeated that process because this paint was stuck down really well to this wood. And so I was hoping to get a bit more chipping. I just wasn't vibing with it, so I just kept working with it. And you can see there, you can start to see some of the paint starting to chip up. So now I think I'm on the right track. I do feel like when you use the mister to kind of reactivate the milk paint, I feel like the crackle becomes much tinier. I think I had bigger crackle, and especially here on the top, like where my left hand is, that crackle is very small. So I decided to go over the whole piece with some wax, and then I was going to do a little bit of dark wax, which was my first mistake. This is the Debbie's DIY dark wax, and even though I waxed it with clear first, and then I took it off with some of the clear wax to wipe it back, I still wasn't crazy about it. It looked very dirty and very gray to me, and I didn't like how it was making the cracks look. I just felt like I took it one step too far, and I just should have left it with the clear wax. So I did decide to take it back into the shop and give it a really, really good sand. And I think I'm a little happier with it. So I brought it back in and attached the handles and just doubled up some twine that I had and fed it through. You see, now it would be a little easier to take out if someone wants to change it down the road. It's not permanently stuck in there. So it was just my solution to doing things a little different, I think. And then after I got the handles in and the height that I liked, then I just came in with a little bit of hot glue and glued those little knots in place. So what do you think? Should I have left it alone or did I take it too far? I really actually like, after sanding it more and distressing it more, it became more about the texture and the grain in the wood as opposed to the crackle and the chippy from the milk paint. So for project number 3 this week, we are playing around with this little frame. I thrifted this picture a while back, and I really just like this simple frame. And so we're gonna do a little bit of decoupage. And I had thrifted, when I was in Arizona at Christmas time, I thrifted a box of drawer liners from Goodwill, and I really liked the I guess the cottagecore vibe of that paper, and I thought it would be really pretty as a decoupage. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna take this frame apart and get it ready for my first technique. So even though that drawer liner is a little thicker, I didn't want to glue it down to that picture of the butterfly. So I was almost out of gold spray paint. I just had a little bit left. So I sprayed that picture gold, and no particular reason. I just wanted to use it up. I spritzed the drawer liner, and then I'm going to just use Mod Podge for my Decopage medium. I'm saving my liquid patina. This is a heavier paper also, so I wanted to be really liberal with my Mod Podge and make sure that I would have really good adhesion. All of that Mod Podge has dried, so now we're just cleaning up the edges with the finger sander and in a downward motion so nothing tears. Just taking off all that paper, and yes, here I am with tissue paper again. I'm gonna do something on top of this decoupage paper, but I was afraid that I really wanted this design to be a little more subtle in the background, so I decided to make it a little more opaque by Mod Podging some tissue paper over the top of it. So I decided to put some DIY liquid patina over the top, and then I had a teeny tiny bit of that white milk paint left, and I wanted it even a little more opaque, so I decided to add a little bit of Big Top to that milk paint just to dull down this design a little bit before I come in with the final treatment for the top, and that is a paint inlay. You guys, I told you I was going to get over my apprehension of paint inlays, and I thought the colors in here, it's kind of a fall vibe, I know, with the colors, but I loved this pattern, this inlay, the colors with that background drawer liner with the frame. I really thought it was a perfect match. So we're doing paint inlay with Big Top, and I've never done that before, so this is going to be a new one. I was a little scared, but I just gave it a good coat of Big Top all over the top of that tissue paper, and then spritzed the back, or excuse me, the front, I should say, the painted side of the paint inlay with water, and then gave it another good spritz before I laid it down. Now, when you are using liquid patina, and I was a little scared to use it because you can't let it dry you can't let it thoroughly dry like you would paint, because then it's basically going to be sealed in and you're not going to be able to get it off. So I used my brayer to smooth everything out and then let it almost dry thoroughly. And when I thought it might be a good time to pull it off, I went ahead and spritzed it with water again. And you guys, I was so happy. Look at this. I love it. So now it is time to put everything back together, and because this inlay is going behind a sheet of matte glass, I did not spray it with a top coat because I felt it would be protected. But I used my point driver to attach the back, and this is my favorite way of putting a new back on a frame piece. My grandfather in the 1960s owned a framing shop. My mom was an artist, and I always heard from her that Elmer's glue and water is the best way to frame the back of artwork. And all you do is just put glue on the back of the frame. I spritzed this piece of construction paper and just got it really good and damp, and then glued the paper down and then spritzed it with more water. And as the glue dries and as the paper dries, it will constrict and tighten up, and you will have a very professional looking backing on your piece. And then we're just cleaning up the edges the way that we do decoupage, and to get off all the excess. I do need to put a couple of hangers, and I'm going to put them on 2 different sides, so this could be hung landscape or vertical. And it is a thin edge, and I did have some little areas that were lifting up, so I love these little bottles. I use these for my alcohol inks, and I got them on Amazon. I'll link them below, but I love the teeny tiny needle tip, and I just have some Quick and Thick in there. It's perfect for tight spaces, so I just went along the edges just to smooth it down to make sure I had a nice tight seal on this frame. And I saw all of these parts come together. I felt like this would have been something that would have been hung in the guest room of my grandparents' house, so I had to include them there. Nana and Granddaddy, I love you. But here it is. What do you think? I really love how the inlay looks on that decoupage. It's just such a subtle background, but it's a new technique, and I really like it, and I'm kind of getting the hang of this inlay thing. So here we are, project number 4, the pivot project. I was going to use these roosters, make some castings using some DOS air dry clay, and attach them to that little box that you see there in the upper left-hand corner. So I went ahead and I dusted the mold with cornstarch and put the air dry clay into all of the areas. I didn't know which flourishes I was going to use, so I just did the whole thing. I've never used one of the molds that is this deep, so I wasn't quite sure how the roosters were going to come out, but I was pleasantly surprised. They came out very easily. I had to work a little bit on the flourishes because it is a thicker mold. You can't bend it back as easily as some of the thinner ones. But I got everything out and then got stuck when I was actually considering applying them to the surface. So my plan was to attach these cuties to the top of this little box, and I was going to stamp the front and put a little knob to open it. And it's just, I don't know if it's the elevation of these roosters. I feel like they should be placed upright. Like, for some reason, I just thought it looked strange to see them laying down. I don't know if it was because the base of the roosters came up higher than the edge of the box. I may be overthinking it. Let me know what your thoughts are. But I just felt like it wasn't a fit. So then I went about trying to find what else I could put these little roosters on. I tried this and he was too tall. So then I have some of these flower pots, these gold flower pots, and I thought maybe I could put him on there, but there's too much of a curved surface. I didn't like that. So then I pulled out a pitcher, and maybe I could put it on the pitcher, but that just wasn't doing it for me. And so I think I pulled out another one to see if I would like this better. And nothing really was striking my fancy. Then I decided, well, what about a book? I could put him on a book somehow. So I tried that, and I even painted the book gold so I would be ready, and I was stuck. I have pivoted 4 or 5 times now with these little roosters until I finally turned around and I saw another thrifted box that I had, and I thought, all right, this may work. And as you can see, it's a mess. But I decided to go with this one, and he's a perfect fit and he's upright. So I gave the box a really thorough cleaning. I gave it a good sanding, pulled out some of the Lost Garden transfers, and got to work. So when I started applying the transfer, I really made sure to go in all different directions because, as you can see, there's lots of ridges on this wood right here, and it went down. It's chalk paint that I am going over. It was previously painted this yellow, and I'm pretty sure it is a chalk paint because it just wiped right off and came off very easily when I went to sand it. So I'm applying all of these transfers, getting down into the little grooves that you have there using this transfer stick and using my fingers. And then when the transfer was applied everywhere, I burnished it really, really well with that top carrier sheet, just making sure that all of the edges are sealed and I don't have any types of little air bubbles within the transfer design. So Quick and Thick is my glue of choice when adhering castings to surfaces. So I just squirted some on the back and then spread it all around and decided to just go ahead and glue this little guy down. I wanted to get it down and get it glued because I didn't want it to dry thoroughly and then me have a harder time trying to form it to the wood if there were any uneven surfaces. And so I'm just using my little micro applicator here to go along the edges and wipe off any glue. These things are a lifesaver when it comes to molds because I tend to be a little generous with my glue and always have some cleanup to do. So I'm just ensuring that this little guy is glued down thoroughly, and then I will let him sit overnight. So the next day I came in with Big Top by DIY and gave a good coat over all of the surfaces of the box, covering those transfers because they need to be sealed in. And I also gave a coat to that little rooster. I had dry brushed it, you can't really tell, but I had dry brushed him in a little bit of white. Just a Dixie Belle Silk Mineral Paint, I believe, in white cap, but he got a coat of Big Top as well. So the inside of the box was not in the best shape, so I decided to give it a coat of paint with Fusion Mineral Paint. This is in the color Conservatory. I painted the lid and the inside of the box, 2 coats of green paint. And then I didn't want a solid green on the rooster, so I just took a little bit of Conservatory and mixed it with some Big Top just to kind of create a green glaze because I wanted color, but I didn't want the opaqueness of a solid green paint. So after the rooster was all dry, then I mixed a little bit of clear wax with some brown wax from Dixie Belle, and it didn't really make a difference in the strength of the brown wax, but I was hoping it would. I didn't really notice a difference, but I just mixed those two together and then just topped that rooster with this brown wax and wiped off the excess. I did also decide to add just a little bit of antique gold rub and buff to the top of him. So for my 5th and final project, I am using this little gold flower pot. I actually have 3 of them. You saw one of the larger ones in the previous project, and I gave this guy a couple of coats of shellac and had to use up some of that Sweetie Jane milk paint that I had left over. So I started painting the outside and the inside of this little flower pot. It took about 3 coats, and as you know, milk paint can be a bit unpredictable, and you'll see that on the inside of this little pot right here, because half of it stuck and half of it didn't. It was all sprayed the same, but for whatever reason. So I was done with 3 coats of paint and just came along with a stiff nylon brush, because I don't know if you can tell, but it's got this little pot has these ridges all around it. So I thought getting the bristles into those ridges would really be the way to go. So I did that. I sprayed it with some clear matte 2X spray by Rust-Oleum, and then just pulled out a little floral transfer. So the Fairy Tale Floral Transfer book by IOD is where I got this little flower, and I thought the size was perfect, so I just made some relief cuts and applied it. I'm loving how it looks on this Sweetie Jane paint, and it went down so easily. I just had to make sure to really work within those grooves, so the transfer would get down as much into those grooves as much as possible. And then when the whole thing was completely transferred, then I went over it not only with the carrier sheet here to burnish it in really well, but I also used just a dry shop rag and really kind of pushed down into all of those grooves to make sure that that transfer was sealed in really good. So I just had a little 1 or 2 spots that I needed to add a little bit of a top coat to help hold the transfer onto the paint. And after everything was burnished and adhered down, then I sprayed it again with that clear matte spray. And I really like how the milk paint looks and how it chipped off of these gold planters. So I now just have to decide what colors I want to do the other 2 planters in. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again this week. I hope you have enjoyed the projects this week, and leave me a comment. Let me know what your favorite is. I so appreciate you guys taking the time to watch and interacting with me. I absolutely love it. Until next time, take care.